All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome. It's Monday. If you're new to the stream, welcome. Let me explain to you how this works. So, first thing I'm going to do is we're just going to run through the economic calendar real quick. So, we're just aware of some economic items that are scheduled for this week. Important to know, especially if you trade intraday. Secondly, we're going to run through these charts. Okay. We're going to do some analysis. We're going to take a look at Bitcoin, of course. We're going to take a look at some of these other markets and see how they're being affected by the current situation. And then I'll take a look at charts that you'd like to see. So if you want to share a symbol in the chat, I'll be happy to take a look at it, or I can answer questions or whatever. And we can also look at trades that took place with the Trade Scanner Pro and see how they played out as well. We can do that. All right. So let's get started. First, let's talk about that economic calendar, shall we? I'm not going to show the list on here. It's just no point in doing that today. I'm just going to explain real quick what's happening. So we begin with tomorrow, which is Tuesday. We have the CPI report here in the US. That's probably one of the most important reports next to like non-farm payrolls and stuff like that. That's at 8:30 a.m. Eastern time. So that's an inflationary gauge. That's why it's so important. And especially in these sensitive times with the Federal Reserve and stuff like that, that can set the tone, right? That can change the market from bullish to bearish or whatever in an instant. So, not trying to guess what the CPI report will be. It's a matter of how it plays out. Hey, Grego, good to see you. Thanks for stopping by. All right. There were a few other items I saw on the calendar, like CPI for like the British pound and some other currencies. Those aren't really going to matter as much. Unless you trade Forex pairs, I wouldn't worry about those. It's more the US numbers. Right now, Wednesday, we have the PPI, which is again 8:30 a.m. Eastern time. That's the producer price index. So that's not as important as the CPI, which is the consumer price index. But it's still important. It could move the market a bit here and there, so be aware of it. And then on Thursday we have retail sales, which again could be a big deal if there are any surprises. Hey, Nugs, good to see you. Thanks for stopping by. All right, so that's pretty much it on the economic calendar. All the other items that I saw on there were pretty much secondary. So I wouldn't worry about those, really. It's really those US numbers, right? Especially right now with the Federal Reserve. I saw a rumor. I don't know. I saw this nonsense. I don't know how true it is, but they're trying to get Powell to resign, right? So I see the headline on the thing: Powell resigning. Powell's resigning. What is this nonsense? So if he were to do something like that, of course the market would probably rally. But I don't know. That to me would be a serious sign of instability if he were to do something like that. Hey, James. All right, good to see you. No problem. Okay, so anyway, enough opinions aside here. Let's now get into the chart, shall we? We'll begin with Bitcoin. I'm going to make my chart bigger here. Man, it's been a pretty wild market. Now, my analysis that I wrote the previous Sunday and yesterday has pretty much been in line, right? The market's been aligned with it. The market was nice enough to make me look good. No one cares though. It doesn't matter that I call the markets right. It really doesn't matter. But I called the 113 breakout. Well, first, when I wrote that report, the market was breaking out. It was like over here. Okay, it was in the process of breaking out, and I drew this little pullback situation, which it never pulled back, and it just broke out of this consolidation, and it went to 113 and just blew through it, right? So in situations like that, again, 113 and 120 were the price objectives that I was calling for. I've been calling for those numbers for quite some time. Those numbers come from projections, okay? Structure projections. That's where they come from. I don't randomly make them up. They come from measuring moves like this, okay? Like measuring these moves and measuring like these, like that kind of stuff. That's where it comes from. So 113 and 120 were inflection points. Now, just because we have a projection doesn't mean the market's going to turn there, but it's a high probability area where the market may show a sign of a turn, right? And look what we're getting right now off of 120. I mean, what's the high? 123. So we went 3,000 points above, and what are we getting right now? It's not closed yet, but we got a bearish pin bar, right? We shouldn't be surprised here. Now, as you can see, I have my number 5 up here, right? And this is the broader wave 5 question mark. I've had this on my chart for quite some time. And my whole thing is this is wave 5, right? And of this wave 5, I can't fully count 5 waves yet. I can count 1, this is 2, this is 3. So this pin bar that we're seeing is most likely the peak of wave 3 within this 5. This isn't the 5th wave, right? I can count 5 little mini waves inside of here, but that's wave 3, right? This is a typical wave 3. This is usually what they look like. They're big and dramatic. They get everyone excited, and they get everyone long, usually at the top. Now, remember, wave counts are a psychological measure. They're not a measure of logic. They're not a measure of precision. They are a measure of irrational behavior. So, and they can be very messy, right? There's no precision here. So if this is wave 3 of the 5, then we're looking for 2 more waves. And that was the point of my report yesterday. We're looking for a wave 4, which can easily pull back to there, which is the 113 area, which was a resistance, which is now likely to be a support. So that would be a good point to look for. And then the wave 5, right? The 5th of the 5th wave, something like that. Now, I don't believe that this is the peak of Bitcoin just yet, because for one, I mean, it could be, but the thing is, markets just don't peak just for the sake of peaking. Usually there's a catalyst, right? Something has to be behind it. So if this is just profit taking doesn't really count as far as a major peak. Now, if the market pulls back and then some catalyst comes out after that, that's what you're going to keep an eye on. But it's the catalyst that's missing here. That's why you can't jump into this short thinking, oh, it's going to 50K. That's a bad idea, right? Because there's nothing behind this. There is no catalyst at all. What's been driving this market, by the way, from what I understand, is the tariff, all the tariff talk and the effects of tariff, blah, blah, blah. Because the dollar is weakening and this and that, people are losing faith in the dollar, so they're putting it into Bitcoin. That was one explanation. Along with that, corporations are buying Bitcoin. I have a problem with that argument, though. You mean to tell me that these corporations, whatever, companies are buying Bitcoin now at these levels? Don't they have like someone to guide them and say, well, your risk is pretty high up here? Or are they that mindless? You know, it's just hard for me to understand that if you're a company and you have money and you have resources to pay someone to do some analysis, they can come back to you and say, yeah, you want to buy Bitcoin, sure, but you don't want to be investing at the top. Wait for better prices, at least something like that, right? I don't know. So I don't really buy that argument too much. Or maybe they bought and they were buying here and maybe that's when they bought. I don't know, but that argument doesn't really do it for me. So, but the tariff situation and the declining dollar, that certainly can have an effect, right? So that's what the stock market has also been very strong. Again, we're not rallying on economic strength here, we're rallying on dollar weakness, which means this rally doesn't have any real legs. We're just losing the value of our dollar. So that means when this thing pulls back, it's probably not going to be pretty. All right. It's probably going to be more dramatic than people think, but we're just not in that situation yet. So here's what I would say about Bitcoin right now. If you're an investor, it would be wise to take some profits, something off the table. I wouldn't be in a hurry to take it all off because you're still looking for the wave 4 pullback and the wave 5. So higher highs are still likely in the next few weeks, even with this ugly pin bar. But it's wise to take something off. If you're a new investor and you're investing now, you're kind of foolish, right? You're taking the most risk. So I would not recommend that. Otherwise, the best way to navigate this market is swing trades and day trades. I will always say that when markets do ridiculous things like push new highs, all-time highs and go nuts and get headlines all over the place, because at any point this thing can pull back. So again, the first pullback would be 113. That is likely to be the bottom of our wave 4. So you're looking for reversal patterns, ideal for swing trades, great for day trades, great for using the Trade Scanner Pro, right? Buying into that pullback and then looking for one more leg. That one more leg is likely the fifth of the fifth leg, right? And that theoretically should make a higher high. So it should go beyond 123. It could go to 125. The thing is, where can it go? It can extend. There's no way to know how far it can go. So here's what I like to do. I start measuring these structures, right? You do something like this, and this will give you inflection points, right? If you notice right here, okay, this could have been anticipated, that 123 level, if you had done that measurement. We rejected it. We rejected that pretty nicely. Okay. Now, again, there's no guarantee that it will reject, but you could have at least anticipated, or it would have been a great profit objective. We have another one up here. What is that? 133.6. So you could round that to like 133. All right. So maybe that's where wave 5 completes, 133. Very possible. So keep that inflection point in mind. You can also use that as a profit objective. I don't know if it'll get there. Just because I do a measurement has no bearing on the probability of it getting there. Okay, you have to put a few factors together. I suspect this is a completion of a wave 3. We're looking for a wave 4 pullback. There's no guarantee that we go back to 113. Maybe we consolidate just above it, very possible. And then we measure that one more leg higher, right? I believe there's a higher probability of one more leg higher, but who knows how high that leg goes. Make sense? So Grego says, gave a buy signal. Oh, at 105. Wow, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it makes it, the Trade Scanner Pro, when there's momentum in the market, right, and you have these continuation moves, the Trade Scanner Pro will go into some very good trades, right? I mean, there was a trade before that, right? If I turn the Trade Scanner Pro on here, there was one before that that went back like a couple of weeks. Where is that? Right? It went back a couple of weeks. Let me just turn this on. There was this one back here from Thursday. It was like 2 weeks ago, right? That was like the 99 area, or the what is that? The high here. Oh, is that the one you're talking about? The 106. Right. Okay. So that's the one you're talking about, right? And that thing, I mean, if we look at the take profit on the Trade Scanner Pro, it said it made 10,000 points. Okay, the take profit on here was 115,419. Okay, but you know it calculates it based on the profit objective that was there. In fact, we can replay that, but I'm not going to do that right now. Point is, it was a nice profit. Okay, but that was a hard trade to take. Like I tell people, especially in this environment, I don't like to take the outright signal. I like to use that as a heads up. And then I like to look at any retest of the entry, which you had here. Okay. You had another possibility maybe to enter here on this consolidation breakout. That would have been more aggressive. But the re-entry really would have been here, right? Which still was not a great price. 107 area. Depends. Of course, you'd have to use a smaller time frame to refine that a bit. But the thing is, you should have at least been leaning long, right? It never went to the stop. It never pulled back. It never gave any short signals, right? So important to keep in mind. Alex, how are you? Alex from Romania. All right, good to see you. Yeah, I mean, what a surprise. Well, I'm not surprised. And we're waiting for party is over. Almost. We're almost there yet. We have to do the wave 4 and the wave 5, right? Because I believe this is still wave 3. Because when I count these waves, if I'm using this as wave 1, right, this little thing here is not a wave 3. So that means that this is wave 2. And this is wave 3, which makes a lot of sense. So, yeah. All right. Hey, Ariz Raria, I can't pronounce that name. I have a hard time seeing that. Let me see. Arizayel. Hey, good to see you. Cool. Welcome. Thanks for stopping by. All right, I have some people watching me today. No, not really. All right, but a lot of people weren't expecting this. All you have to do is listen to Michael Saylor, right? As far as the breakout, because Bitcoin's going to 10,000 million by next week, and if you don't buy it, you will regret everything. You will regret it. That's what he says every time. You will regret everything. So anyway, all right, so you guys follow me on Bitcoin. So don't get sucked into this. Put it into perspective. Shorting, while it could be tempting, I would say if you're more experienced and you want to work on smaller time frames, that would be a better idea, like day trades. Swing trades and anything more than that, you're asking for trouble. Because this thing, just because we're getting this pin bar, first of all, the pin bar isn't activated yet, meaning we haven't broken the low of the pin bar. This candle needs to close and the low needs to be broken, number one. Number two, like I've been dealing with the Nasdaq, these pin bars, these bearish pin bars go nowhere. And then Nasdaq's been ridiculous, right? Just ridiculous, where it gives these bearish setups and goes nowhere but up. So anyway, so just something to keep in mind there. Let me know if you have questions about Bitcoin. All right. I mean, because this could be tricky. Wait for the pullback, look for swing trades, look for day trades, and then watch for that leg higher over the next week or two. Watch for one more leg higher after it pulls back, whether it's a consolidation or a more pronounced pullback. It should not, to kind of give you some more perspective, if this is our wave one, right? If this is the top of wave one over here, okay, then Bitcoin, in order for this impulse to be valid, Bitcoin should not go below that price. If Bitcoin goes below this price, which is what? What is this? 108,550. So if Bitcoin goes below, but when I say below, I mean like, 107 doesn't really count. It needs to go to like 103 or 102 and then stay there. Like it can't bounce right away, right? If it really breaks that area, then it overlaps wave one, and then it invalidates the impulse. So at that point, we have to relabel, and figure out, okay, so if this is not an impulse, then then chances are we're not going to see that wave five. And in that scenario, this could be the top, right? Hey, how are you? Okay, so what do you think about Bitcoin against the dollar? I could take a look at that, but I would imagine, part of this is because of the dollar weakening. Yeah, and Ethereum, right, starting to catch up a bit. But I mean, I have to say, these altcoins, like with Bitcoin here, these altcoins should be going crazy. I haven't looked at many of the altcoins, but I would think, especially with that Ethereum push, I would think that, it's going to get more of these altcoins excited. We could take a look at a few of those as well. We just re-tapped the previous highs, right? On Ethereum, you mean? So yeah, I mean, it took Bitcoin to go all the way here for Ethereum to get to there. Like, I don't know. That's still, there's just been that lingering relative weakness. So I don't know. So anyway, so I'm going to leave you with that with Bitcoin. Let me know if you have any questions or if you're confused or anything about Bitcoin. All right, now let's move along here, and let's take a look at let's go to the Nasdaq. Right, we could go to the NQ1. Right, these are the Nasdaq futures, and I mean this has just been complete, like, very hard to trade. Okay, this is the daily time frame. It doesn't back. So it just knows only to go one way, and that's up. We're consolidating again in this little tight little range, right? And it looks like it's going to break out higher. I mean, look where we are when we look at the weekly chart. Look at this. The Trade Scanner Pro called a long weeks ago. Look at that. That was off the April low. Look at it, right at the profit objective. I mean, that's a very hard trade to take. And the trailing stop is just above break even. Again, this took weeks and weeks and weeks to play out. But look at that. It's right at the profit objective. Interesting, right? So I don't know. again, we're losing value of the dollar. That's why these things are being driven like this. So I wouldn't be piling money in to invest. I don't know. It's just I just see all I see is risk here, and I'll always say that when markets linger at highs and just don't pull back. I mean, we don't pull back. This is not a pullback here. It tried to pull back a few times, right? We just don't pull back. So we don't. We're lacking any type of catalyst, whatever you want to call it, and we just have to wait and see until the support is reached. I mean, there's really nothing else you could say about it. A lot of them still have resistances holding, right? Which is interesting because that means they're relatively weak. What happens when Bitcoin pulls back? You know, are they all going to collapse when Bitcoin pulls back? When Bitcoin really pulls back? You know, because when that wave 5 completes, when it really completes, and now we're looking at the broader, what I'm thinking is wave 2, the broad wave 2, that thing theoretically can pull back pretty far. Now, again, in the absence of a catalyst, it's not going anywhere, right? So keep that in mind. There has to be a catalyst behind that. What do you think of investing in Ethereum now? Just by looking at the chart, we'll take a look at that, Alex. So let's jump over to there now because there's really nothing I can say about Nasdaq. We could look at some levels here real quick, right? Just on the daily time frame. Look at this. So you have a level right here. This is the Nasdaq futures. So you can also apply this to the Qs. 22,779, right? That's the range low. So as long as we're staying above that, and it looks like we're going to try to break this high again, right? What's the range high? 100 area, right? And right now we're at 23,046. So, you know, this thing is poised to break higher. How far higher does it go? I don't know. So I would be very careful shorting that though. The way to play something like this is just look for supports. We keep getting higher lows. Look to try to buy a support if you're looking at this thing, especially if you day trade it. All right. All right. So let's take a look at Ethereum because we have a few people talking about Ethereum here. So let's see. Ethereum. We can also take a look at. Now, Alex is asking, would it be a good idea to invest here? Let's take a look at the weekly chart. So, I mean, when you look at this from the weekly perspective, this is all I see. I see this structure right here, right? And we're in the middle of it. So this is a tough place to invest. Although I believe it's going to suck a lot of people in because they're going to be like, oh, Ethereum is catching up now. It's going to play catch up. I don't. If these things were more correlated or if this thing was relatively strong to Bitcoin, Ethereum should be up here, right? Bitcoin is pushing all-time highs, blowing through them. And this is the best Ethereum can do. Like that's just very problematic for me. That's a sign of relative weakness. Maybe it's a delay. I don't know what you want to call that. But yeah, I would not invest. Like that does not look like a good level to invest, in my opinion. I mean, buying retracements. Oh, well, yeah, buying retracements. I mean, the thing is, look, if you're going to talk about a trend, right, you have a possible trend developing here, right, because you have a higher low and you have a higher high. You could draw a trend line there, okay? You could draw a trend line. This is the weekly time frame. So a pullback to that trend line, which would take you around here, okay, which aligns with this consolidation, might be a good place to buy a pullback, right? That would be one area to consider if you're looking to invest. But it's still, in my opinion, when it comes to investing, you know, this could turn out to be a lower high relative to these other structures. So you want to pay attention to that area. You want to pay attention to these lows over here, which is what? The 2,100 area. And of course, this low over here. Those are your investing levels, okay? Which means the market's going against you and you're essentially dollar cost averaging in that scenario. It's tough. It's tough to play that game, right? But if you want to play the game with the market going your way, that would be one pullback, you know, pull back to that trend line or into this consolidation area and then try to buy breakouts on the way as it continues higher and proves its strength along the way. If at some point it breaks a support like this support right here, this is the support that's in play. Okay, I'm going to highlight it. This area right here, that's your support. If that support breaks, then that changes the trend again. So in that scenario, it might be a good idea to invest less or hold off until the structure becomes more stable, right? I mean, when a pullback occurs, you want to see something like this. See how it's like elongated, it's taking forever to pull back. You want to see something like that, like a flat pullback, right? Not these sharp. These sharp pullbacks are very tricky. But so if this thing lingers, you know, and works its way back to this area slowly, that might be a good time to start buying some. You know, looking for it to continue higher. But if it starts breaking supports, that's when you should be more conservative as far as putting on more and stuff like that. So, okay, 2,800. Let's see, where is that? I'll put that on the chart here. Where is that? 2,800. That's around. Okay, so that's right. That's the bottom of this consolidation right here. Right, that's the bottom of that consolidation. Remember, this is a weekly chart. So it touched that and it spent a number of weeks bouncing off of that level. Right? And you can argue that this is a failed low right here. But so these levels are going to be important. If there's any retest and this thing, you know, Ethereum starts to trade at these levels, right, at some time in the next, I don't know, 3 months or longer, and Ethereum works its way back and people are buying into it, and next thing you know, it's back here. That's where that would be a great place to start a position, in my opinion. If you're not in, it could be a place to add. But the thing is, if it breaks and it breaks with conviction, and there are catalysts that are present, meaning, I don't know, some Ethereum news, Ethereum gets banned in Russia. I'm just making stuff up. Like that's just ridiculous. But you know what I'm saying? Some kind of news like that, then I would wait until stability returns, because that's the thing with those levels. You can have the level in mind, right? And you could say, oh, you know, I'm going to buy it over here, right? And you buy a bunch of it and it just breaks. Right? So you want to wait for stability to return or something on these weekly candles at least before stepping in. You can step in small, but when it comes to being more aggressive with your size, I think it pays to wait for stability. You know, or just taking small bites. Maybe you're buying, you know, fractions of a coin at a time, small bites, and they add up over time. Even though you're taking a bunch of pain, it's not really painful if it's small enough, if you really believe in the bigger picture, right? Without using the structure as a guide. Does that make sense? All right. So that's Ethereum. Now you mentioned Bitcoin against the dollar index. Is there a symbol for that? BTC. Oh, just a formula. Oh, I see. Okay. Let's see. I see. I see. It's a ratio chart. Okay, got you. Here it is. So Bitcoin. So this is Bitcoin against the dollar, right? Or Bitcoin, I guess, in dollars or whatever in relation to the dollar index. I mean, look, all if we could use levels on something like this, I mean, look where you are. So theoretically, Bitcoin has been barely higher, right? 11,970. What is that? 11 million? Yeah. So let's say 11,970. All right. And we went here to 12,093. I mean, we barely pushed that higher. So we were higher. I mean, we were basically, we were in the same area, not higher. We're slightly higher now. But I mean, I see something like that. I don't know. That certainly doesn't look inviting for longs. Okay. But charts like this, I don't know. I have a hard time with charts like this for timing. Because I mean, how do you time something like this, right? Where you're going to get short Bitcoin when it looks like when you have this situation going on. Like it's very hard to measure things precisely in terms of risk. You're going to go long there. I mean, maybe it cleans up some of the noise, you know, when you compare that to Bitcoin. It's an interesting chart. But if we're going to use a chart just based on what it's showing us here, this looks like a resistance. So you know, not exactly inviting for longs. Barely stronger. So you think what happens next? Well, again, we have the bearish pin bar, so we may see that pull back possibly to 113K, but we have to look at the wave counts, right? Because the wave counts represent the irrational behavior part of the market, in my opinion, and we need to see if we get that fifth leg, that fifth wave higher, and theoretically, or at least probability wise, we should. Okay, and if we don't, that means we overlap wave one, and that means the party is most likely over in that scenario. So there's no way to know. A chart like this can't really help me judge that, and a big factor is going to be how the what kind of catalyst we have. Like right now, again, part of this has been driven by the tariff situation. So if that tariff situation suddenly changes, maybe that's what pulls the rug out from Bitcoin. I don't know. Or some other unexpected news. I don't know. So, but good question though. Good question. All right. So that was Bitcoin against the dollar there. Let's take a look at some other charts here. Let's take a look at. Let's see. We took a look at the Nasdaq. Let's take a look at. Well, let's go straight to the dollar index, right? DXY, and because this is the weekly chart on the dollar index. So part of the explanation that I was looking at for Bitcoin being driven besides tariff, is dollar weakness. But I don't know. I mean, yes, I get it. Dollar weakness. I get this. Okay. But dollar is not going lower at the moment. It's been going lower over time. It broke an important support level, right? Dollar has broken an important support level, the dollar index, but it's overlapping now, right? We're getting overlap here. So does the dollar find stability? I don't know. If it does, that's probably not going to be a positive for anything, right? Except for when you go to the supermarket. So yeah, that's the thing. With these broad moves, like in Bitcoin or even in the S&P or the bonds, you need some kind of catalyst. You need some kind of story behind it, or narrative. You need something like that driving it. If nothing like that is present, then most likely we're just looking at noise, right? That's why I like that pin bar on Bitcoin. While it's significant and it's significant for the short term, meaning, we may see a pullback tomorrow or whatever. I would not expect that pullback to have any serious legs. Like, I would not expect that pullback. I don't think we're going to 90K, just because a pin bar is there. Now, if some news comes out and they're like, oh, Bitcoin just became illegal in some other country or whatever, something very dramatic, then that pin bar, anything after that pin bar becomes very meaningful, right? Because you need that. It needs to change the perception, right? The herd that's driving this thing is just mindlessly buying because the future looks like Bitcoin's going to go to $1 trillion. I mean, that's right. It's all about perception of the future. Until that changes, we're not going to see that significant pullback. So let's take a look. ZN1. That was next, Alex, from Romania. Let's take a look. So ZN1, right? The bonds. The bonds have gone nowhere. I'm looking at a weekly chart here. Okay. The bonds have gone nowhere for weeks and weeks and weeks. They just go nowhere. So this might be part of the reason why the market also just lingers and lingers, because bonds have to make a serious move one way or the other, and they don't. So if bond prices go lower, rates go higher, and the dollar theoretically should go higher. This doesn't count as bonds going lower, right? Bonds going lower would mean we break this level here, right? That's bonds are going lower, okay? Bonds going higher means we're breaking these levels up here, right? Which means rates are going lower. If bond prices go lower, rates are rising. We're going neither way here. We're right in the middle, right? We've been overlapping this area for quite some time, going all the way back to like the beginning of the year. Look at that. We've spent a lot of time in this area. So there's a rumor that, yeah, I saw that, Alex, Powell's going to resign, or they're trying to pressure him to resign, right? Something like that. I really I just think that's nonsense. There was some tweet, one of these government people or whatever was calling him out and saying you need to resign and whatever. I think that, first of all, that's political. That's a political move. If he were to resign, that means he's giving into political pressure. I know the central bank has to deal with political pressure, even though it's not supposed to. But if he resigns, the market's going to go to the moon, right? And because they're going to install some mindless whatever in there who's going to just, hey, let's cut rates because I've been pressured to, right? And our dollar is going to become worthless. We're going to be wheelbarrowing worthless dollars. I think the guy is trying to do the right thing, and he's got a lot of, he's stuck in a hard spot. But I don't know. I don't believe that rumor. The rumor is that there's a client. Oh, that. Oh, UTXO. Right. Yeah. Nah. So, I don't know. Anyway, so until the bonds make a serious move, there's just we're probably not going to see much change, right? Because the game begins with the bonds, and there's nothing going on here. All the economists can talk all they want, all this and all that and all this and all that. Until we see the decisive move here, there's just nothing, right? Okay, so let's move on. That's the bond market. How about oil? Oh, I noticed oil has been working its way higher. Okay, oil is usually not much higher, but it's trying, right? Oil is usually a measure of inflation, energy prices, right? Except they always exclude oil from the CPI report. I mean, look at this thing. We had all the drama that we had over the few weeks, and now it's just kind of stuck. This is the weekly chart, right? Let's look at the daily time frame. As you can see, there's a signal on oil. The Trade Scanner Pro has called it short, and it's got a number of re-entries. Look at that. There's a number of re-entries with another one occurring today. That's interesting, right? And we refused to go beyond even the midpoint of this large mother bar candle. Remember, that was all the geopolitical stuff, right? So this looks like it's actually setting up for a short. And the Trade Scanner Pro called it short way back here. I mean, it's been a couple of weeks since it called it short. That's why I tell people, you don't take the initial signals. You wait for these re-entry opportunities. So if you were going to short, this is when you should do it, right? Using a reference like this. And of course, your stop loss is defined up here, which that's a pretty wide stop. That's a big loss, right? If you short oil now and you get stopped out up there, that's a lot of, that's what, a little over 7 points. That's a lot. For oil, that's a lot. So anyway, yeah. So that's the oil situation. All right. So not much, that doesn't really tell us anything. Oil going lower, actually. What's oil at? 67.09 now? It's been as low as 64. What's the low on oil? 64 even. So it went up a couple of dollars. It's turned around. Its highest point was today at 69.65, right? So if oil starts breaking, then maybe that causes other things to move, right? I mean, breaking oil means deflation. I would imagine the dollar would be going lower in that scenario, or the dollar index should be going lower. We saw the dollar index was trying to inch its way a little higher. So I don't know. You can't really trade on those relationships. You just look to observe them and see if they're sticking, and see if, dollar inching higher, oil inching lower. Okay, that's what it should do. And if you were looking for a short, for one, if I were to short oil, it wouldn't be on this time frame. I'd be looking at an intraday chart anyway if I were to do something like that, because this thing could be wild, and it's very easy to lose a lot of money. All right, so that's oil. It's really not much. It doesn't really help us out here too much. All right, let's take a look at some other things. How about gold? Actually, silver. Silver has been a little wild. XAUUSD. Silver has been strong, right? I mean, it's been on this uptrend for quite some time. It doesn't pull back, right? Let's look at the weekly chart. I mean, look at silver. Silver hasn't been this high in a long time. I mean, this dates back, this goes back more than 10 years. It's pretty wild. And it's now producing a weekly pin bar. Now, of course, this is the beginning of the week, so you can't take that pin bar seriously until it closes, right? So you need the whole week to go by. And it's done this before, right? Only to ignore those bearish signs. So something to keep in mind. But interesting to see. XRP, yeah, we could take a look. Let's take a look. All right. And guys, let me know if you have anything else you'd like me to take a look at. Let me know. And I'll just mention, by the way, I'll just mention this. While I don't have the link up here, I don't have the what do you call it? The thing on my overlay. But I am an affiliate now for Apex, but that's more for my Wednesday stream. But if you're interested in signing up for Apex, if you want to help my channel out and get me to incentivize me to stream more, and you're looking to do an Apex evaluation anyway, then you could use my code, which is MPM, like Mark P Markets, MPM. And if you use that, I get a small cut and it helps out the channel. I'm not expecting to make much money off of that, but if I see people signing up for that, and it helps out the channel and it incentivizes me to do more streams, especially the day trade ones. I'll just mention that now. Usually I have the code up on the thing. I don't have the code up on this stream. All right, let's take a look at, oh, Hood, that's a good one too. We could take a look at that. So we'll start with XRP, USD, and then we'll take a look at Robinhood. So XRP, I mean, wow, this thing is following Bitcoin. Nice breakout off of this higher low area. We've talked about XRP a few times, right? I've been generally bullish on this thing, right? If you just go back on my streams, because it had this higher low consolidation. Now, again, this is going back weekly now, right? So if you're not in this, what do you do now? There's really not much you could do now. If you're flat, you're looking to get in, you missed it, right? You missed this. So you're up in this area here, right? This is likely a resistance. Again, Bitcoin made new highs. Ethereum has not made new highs, but it made some progress. And here's XRP, again, trying to do a similar thing. But in my opinion, buying these things now is just a bad idea. If you're buying to invest, you're going to do that now at these prices. I think the risk is too high. Bitcoin at 123, these things should be on fire, right? I mean, look at this. Let's just go back. Oh, I don't have any data beyond that on this. What Coinbase? Okay. I should probably change the exchange here, because I know XRP was higher, wasn't it? Let's take a look at Bitstamp. Oh, look, there's a signal. Let's just go back a bit, right? All right, so XRP made new highs. I guess that dates back to the election. Yeah, this is like the election rally, right? It made this higher high, it made new all-time highs, whatever, barely, right? And then gave it back. So, I mean, look, in this situation, if you're looking for swing trades, at least wait for some type of continuation pattern, at least, right? Maybe some type of consolidation or whatever. But these things take forever. I mean, this thing took weeks. What is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, about 6 weeks before it gave you that higher low and then a buy signal. 6 weeks it took. So, if you're in it, great. Not a bad place to take some profit. You also have a profit objective up here at the high. What is that? That's the all-time high. $3.36 or whatever, right? There's a profit objective up there. So that would also be a good place to unload, take some money off the table if you're long, and hold on to some to see if it makes the higher high. But besides that, there's nothing to do here. And this is not worth shorting. So there's nothing to do here other than wait for maybe a pullback to the blue line, or wait for some kind of pullback maybe and get involved at that point. But this is one of those things, like, you just have to wait until it gets hammered. Big red candles, wait for supports and start buying into it and hope for the best. That's all you can do with these. I know there's a lot of talk with XRP and the SEC, and they have a a government that's supportive and blah blah blah. So there's some fundamentally strong arguments for this thing behind it, but that doesn't mean you buy highs. Do you think it holds above $3? Well, it's tough to say. Like when it's in the middle of this, the question you really have to ask is what happens if Bitcoin pulls back? Because this thing is affected by Bitcoin, right? It follows. So if Bitcoin pulls back heavily or if Bitcoin pulls back, whatever, what happens to this thing? That's why I'm not very optimistic. Unless Bitcoin can just keep the party going and Bitcoin does that wave 5 that we talked about, and maybe Bitcoin pushes 130 or something like that, then maybe you get that scenario where this thing follows, right? It gets pushed up along with it. But if Bitcoin turns to garbage or whatever, something changes, you're in a vulnerable area for this thing. So that's why it's like for something like this, it's great if you're in it. If you're not in it, then shorter time frame, like in this situation, like look, day after day, it just goes higher and higher. You don't even have a red candle in here. Look at that. So in a situation like that, if you really want to be aggressive with it, look for inside bars, right? Like, look, here's an inside bar right here. But look where you have, and you buy the break of the inside bar. Look at that. Look where you have to buy that. And you have to hope for the best, right? You have to hope that it breaks above and starts working its way higher. And there are a lot of times where you may buy that inside bar. Here's another inside bar. Look at that one. This one never looked back, right? Those are inside bars are continuation patterns. But when you buy near resistances like that, if this thing decides to pull back more significantly, you're in the red pretty quick. So you have to be prepared for that, right? And you have to be able to sustain that risk and get out of it if it does something like that, if you take that type of aggressive entry, right? Again, nice inside bar there. It never looked back, right? But that doesn't, it's not the inside bar that makes that move powerful. It's the breakout, right? The inside bar is just a continuation pattern, but you had a resistance breakout out of this consolidation, this long time consolidation. On top of that, Bitcoin broke out. Remember, Bitcoin is the leader. If Bitcoin decides to pull back to 80K, where is this thing going to go? Right? So use Bitcoin as your guide. All right. So I hope that helps. All right. So that's XRP. Let's take a look at Robinhood. I know a lot of talk about Robinhood with they're going to have their coin, right? And they're getting their Web3 stuff. I saw a bunch of videos with that CEO. And so let's look at the weekly. I mean, look at this. Look at this. It's in a straight line. I mean, look at this. This is vertical. Week after week after week doesn't pull back. Okay. It's funny. People usually ask me about these things when they look like this. Like, oh, how about Robinhood? When they look like this. Right? So, I mean, this is a weekly chart. It's beyond its all-time high. This is the all-time high. We're way beyond the all-time high. There's nothing to do here. If you're long, what is this thing? Almost $100? Okay. If you're long, at this time, there are no sell signals. There's no reason to sell at this time. Doesn't mean that won't change. But right now, I don't see a bearish pin bar. I don't even see a red candle. Look at this inside bar over here. Okay, so there's nothing to do but hold on. Now you're at the $100 inflection point, whole number. That's usually a psychological number. So if you were to get out of some, that would probably be a good price to get out of some, right? If you're an investor. If you are looking for swing trades, there's nothing to do here. There's no reason to go long. There's no reason to go short. Maybe day trades, been waiting for a pullback to buy more. So you think yeah, I mean, Nugs, there's really not much to do. It's a beautiful chart. So it's either you're taking profits, right? At the 100, take something. You don't have to take, I wouldn't take the whole thing off, but it's wise to take something off. I don't know where you're long from. And you're waiting for a pullback. So when that pullback comes, I mean, it could be significant, right? Your first support on something like this is over here, right? That's your first support, that area. Okay, what price is that? That area is around 66, so $70. That's a serious pullback, right? It's hard to believe it would pull back that far, but that's a support level. Okay, or maybe you get a more minor support, like a more minor pullback, maybe to this gap over here, right? You have this little area right here. You have a little gap in there. That's the all-time high, the previous all-time high, right? If I go back here, right, and I pull this back, look, see that? So it's the previous all-time high. So that's a good place for support as well, right? What is that? 85.55. That's a little more reasonable, right? You may see something like that. So those are your prices if you're looking to buy more on a pullback. Of course, it would be a good idea to wait for some sort of confirmation, maybe on a smaller time frame that it's turning around. Don't just step in front of it at that level because it can break, right? It's random; it could break. But what a beautiful looking chart. I know I've been seeing a lot of talk with Robinhood. So clearly, you know, they're aggressive. They're getting involved in the blockchain thing or whatever. Or they've been involved. The tokenization. I saw that whole thing, right? So this makes sense that Bitcoin making new highs. This thing may get more sensitive to Bitcoin, right, and all that. So it's something to keep an eye on as far as relationships go. But nice chart. When they're pushing these highs like this, the only way I would play this right now if I were to get involved now, because again, this is a weekly chart, I would look at daily levels and I'd look at day trades. I'm just curious. Let's go to a 5-minute chart. What does this look like on the day trade time frame? Trade Scanner Pro calling it a short. Well, again, as you guys know, you can't take signals for the sake of taking signals with the Trade Scanner Pro. It has to align with analysis. You have to do analysis first, right? So this, I would ignore this. We could turn that off, right? Ignore that because this thing is generally bullish, right? I don't want to short something that's generally bullish. So, I mean, intraday, how would we do something like this? Clearly, look, there's a resistance up in this area, right? Touched 3 times. Look at that. So, where are our supports? Here, right? Look at that. So it found support in this area, but it wasn't perfect. It wasn't like it bounced right off of it. It stabilized in that area and produced a higher low right here. So, and now it's on its way higher. What time is it? Is the market closed yet? Okay, the market closes in 1 minute. So that's how Robinhood is going to close. So yeah, nice chart. Nice chart. Nothing to do but hold on to it on the larger time frame if you're in that. Nice trade. You're long from 25. Wow. That's a great price. Yeah. So I would certainly be watching for that bearish pin bar or something. Like again, like there's no reason to sell, but at some point, some kind of pattern will show up, and that might be the signal to at least take something off the table, right? It's wise to take something off the table once you get that reversal pattern. Even though the reversal pattern may not stick, like a lot of these markets, they don't stick. You get the pin bar and it just goes higher and higher. But it's still a good idea. It's a good habit to get into just taking something off the table at such levels, right? But that doesn't exist right now, right? Let's take a look at this is the daily time frame. Now on the daily time frame, there's been numerous times to add to this thing. Just look at these barely pullback. Look at these things. Red back to green. Look at that. Right? So, I mean, it does look, here's an example. Got that bearish pin bar right here, Friday, and it's completely ignoring it. Right now, you have another bearish pin bar that's closed today, but until you break the lows of those pin bars, it's got to break the lows. And even when it breaks the low, it may not pull back very far. So, just got to keep an eye on that. My hood average is $30. Wow. Nice. Okay. Still, at least you got a piece of that. What a move. I don't have any. How about that? 150. Okay. That's good. But just keep in mind, the higher it goes, just your risk continues to rise, right? Maybe you could use like a moving average maybe as a reference. I mean, look, because you had to look at this pin bar over here. That looked like a pretty nasty pin bar, right? You would think a reversal would materialize from there. No reversal, just inside candles and then continue higher. So just don't get caught like where it puts in its top and then you stay in it. You know, like one thing you can do, and I'm not giving you trade advice. I'm just suggesting locking in some profit. One thing you could do is just you could like manually trail the stop. For example, you could say, okay, this consolidation low right here, that's the trailing stop. That's the support. It should not go below that. Okay, it should stay above that, or maybe it goes slightly below, but then reverses right away. Right? If it goes below and stays below, right, something like this, it stays below, then maybe that's a good time to take something off the table. Again, that's up to you. There has to be some sort of metric, some sort of thing. Again, a moving average is usually good for something like that, like a 20 period moving average on a daily time frame, right? As long as it stays above. Once it starts to break below, maybe that's a sign. You know, would you also take a look at GVO? Sure, $1.23. Okay, GVO. All right. I think you've talked about that one before. GVO. Let's go back to the weekly chart here. $1.23. All right. Let's see where that is. Let's put that up on the chart here. Where is that? $1.23. Hold on a second. Let me just check something. Okay. Where is that here? $1.23, and you're out of your initial investment. So I'm going to put a line. I'm going to draw a horizontal line at that price. So that's over here, basically. Okay. So, well, all right. This is your weekly time frame. This is kind of a mixed chart, right? You had this initial move. Is that the election? No, that's not. Yeah, it is the election, right? You had this initial move, sort of. It's actually before the election, and it pulled back, right, to your $1.23 area. It reversed. It's on its way up. I mean, right now, if you're just going to use the candles, it gave you a bearish look the week before, but it's recovering. I mean, today is only one day, so you got to keep an eye on that. But it's a good sign that you see a green candle eating up that pin bar. That's a good sign, right? So in a situation like this, you want to look at your coming resistance levels that are ahead. So where are they? Let's see. You have a resistance level up in here somewhere. That would be your next resistance, right? Based on this price action back here. So what is that? What is that? That is $1.75. So I would say that $1.75 to $2 would probably be a good area to look at as a resistance, maybe a good price objective to use. Because you know, $2, the whole number. What's this peak up here? What is this? Let's see. That's $2.95. That's about $3. So this is like the $3 area. So I guess you know the whole numbers will serve as a good reference point. So maybe if you can reach $2 or somewhere above 175, that might be a good place to start taking something off the table, lock in some more profits, you know, and then try to let some ride. Now it's at a resistance that tempts me to sell. Okay, no, and that's yeah, you could say there's some resistance there. It's tricky though, you know. But so I would say the thing in your favor, Alex, is you had this pin bar the week before. If that pin bar was going to really assert itself, then today's candle, again, this is only one candle. This one day, you have 5 days for this candle, or 4 more days before this candle is closed. This candle should be breaking the low, right? If that bearish momentum was intact, you should be breaking the low. You haven't broken the low yet. So as long as you don't, I mean, this is reversing. It's going the other way. That's a good sign. If it breaks the high instead, that's a great sign. If it breaks the weekly high, so you might as well give that candle a chance. Now again, you still have 4 more days. This candle could turn into a pin bar and then break below. It can happen. So you just have to be prepared for that, you know, and figure out how you want to deal with that. Okay, but good question though. All right. So, all right. So we covered all the main ones here. We covered some of the requests. Anything else you guys want to see? Anything else? So, again, remember, we have the CPI report tomorrow. It's been a tough market in terms of just intraday movement, in my opinion, because eventually the market trends, but there's a lot of noise, very noisy. So it can be very hard to see through at times. You know, if you're having a hard time in this market, it's probably a good idea to just take time off, in my opinion, right? Because the moves are not smooth, or maybe just trade a certain time of day, or look at bigger picture stuff, right? You have to adjust because otherwise, it can be tough when things are very noisy, right? And I'm particularly referring to the Nasdaq. So on Wednesday, we will day trade the Nasdaq. I'm going to attempt to trade larger size because I got to make something happen in that account, right? That's the eval account for Apex. Either I need to blow the account or I need to reach the profit objective. The only way I'm going to make something happen, because I've been working at that thing now for 3 months and I'm going too slow. The only way I'm going to make something happen in that account is by playing with size. It's the only way. So we'll see what Wednesday looks like. Again, Wednesday is the PPI report. So that's at 8:30, and we'll see what the market looks like after that. Maybe we'll have an interesting day. Maybe I'll blow the account. Maybe I won't. All right, so we'll see how that goes. Again, it's the evaluation account. All right, guys. So if I don't see any other questions, I'm going to wrap this up. I really appreciate you guys sticking around and checking out my stream. Please try the Trade Scanner Pro out. If you haven't tried it out yet, it's 14-day free trial, and give it a fair chance. It's not a forecasting tool. So if you're having a problem with it, most likely you're using it wrong. Watch my streams. If you go back and watch my AM streams, I have tons and tons of examples of how to use it, right? It's like a training session. I teach you how to do the analysis. I teach you how to use the filter, which is not intuitive. You're not going to figure it out, right? Watch my streams and you will see what I'm talking about. Okay. So anyway, all right, you guys. So again, thanks again. Wednesday, we'll do this at 9:30 a.m. We'll be looking for day trades on the Nasdaq using the Trade Scanner Pro. All right, guys. So enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your evening, wherever you are in the world. And thank you very much for watching.